Welcome to a conversation on the Mental Health and Wellbeing chapter of the Planning for Next Normal at School Playbook. I'm Flora Daniel, National Project Manager, Thriving Schools at Kaiser Permanente. During this conversation, we'll walk through the 5 plays, learn about activation or implementation strategies, and supporting resources. In this video, you will see some pages from the Kaiser Permanente-led playbook, Planning for the Next Normal, keeping students, staff, teachers, and families safe and healthy. Kaiser Permanente is the nation's largest integrated healthcare system, providing coverage and care for over 12 million members in 8 regions across the country. Kaiser Permanente is committed to health and creating communities where people can be healthy in all the places they live, learn, work, and play. Kaiser Permanente launched Thriving Schools, an initiative to support the physical and mental health needs of students and educators. For more information about Thriving Schools and to download the playbook at no cost, we encourage you to visit the Thriving Schools website. Also on the website, you'll find a recorded webinar covering all 5 chapters of the playbook. Today, I'm joined by Elizabeth Cook, Senior National Advisor, Social Emotional Health at Alliance for a Healthier Generation. Elizabeth is also the co-author of the Mental Health and Wellbeing chapter. Welcome, Elizabeth.
Hey, Flora. Nice to see you today.
Nice to see you as well. Well, to get our conversation started, can you tell us a bit about your background and expertise?
Oh, yeah, sure. Happy to. So like Flora said, I'm the Senior National Advisor of Social Emotional Health here at the Alliance for a Healthier Generation. I am a school psychologist by training and have over a decade of field experience in urban, rural, and suburban settings. I also have state level experience. I used to work at the Wisconsin Department of Public Instruction as both the school mental health and school psychology consultant, where my primary roles there was really around supporting schools and districts in implementing comprehensive school mental health with the specific focus on trauma-sensitive schools. I'm also a member of my local school board, and I'm a parent of a school-age child. So I feel like I come to this from multiple different lenses, multiple different prongs of my life that sort of all converge together.
That's awesome, Elizabeth. You have a well-rounded expertise in this in the subject matter today. But leaning more towards your expertise in mental health and well-being, can you tell us a bit why it's so critical to address mental health and well-being as we plan for the next school year?
Yeah. So, we've always known that learning is emotional, right? And that addressing mental health and wellness for our students and staff is critical for achieving academic success. The disruptions that were caused by COVID-19 have only heightened mental health and wellness concerns that we have of our students and also of our adults as well. If we want our students to feel reconnected, re-engaged, and re-energized about school this fall, then we need to ensure that they're mentally healthy first and foremost.
Before we dive deeper into the plays, I'd like to walk us through all the 5 plays for this chapter. So first, we have community building activities. Next is trauma-informed training, open discussions on environmental stressors, social emotional skill building, and mental health support services. So Elizabeth, if you could tell us a bit about how does community building support resilience and mental health, and what are some ways schools can do this?
Yeah, so there's a reason why this play is the very first one, because it sets the foundation for a lot of the work that we'll be doing in rebuilding our schools as we open in the fall. The more connected a person feels to their school community, the more likely they are to attend school and engage in learning. So community building isn't just a nice thing to do, it's essential, right? It's necessary as it directly enhances academic success. And there are some really great strategies out there to help support you in doing this. But before you dig into those strategies, the first step that I always encourage educators to do is to not think about their classroom spaces first, but actually think about the community spaces that they exist in, that they really enjoy, right? The ones that make them feel safe and seen and supported, whether it's a book club or a gym or just a really good group of friends. Really think about what makes that space so welcoming and so great for you. And when I ask that question of educators, usually a few themes pop up. people talk about those spaces being strengths-based. So people are recognizing me for what I bring to the table versus, what might be some of my growth areas or opportunities for me to grow a little bit more or sort of be better. The other thing that they do is they often promote authenticity. So those are places where I can show up and be my authentic self in all of my fullness without worrying about being judged for that or people not liking me. And finally, they usually have a set of shared values or norms. So this feeling, the feeling that you get when you're in your own community spaces, is the feeling we want to replicate for our school community. A couple of quick strategies for doing this. Developing group agreement, so we all have that shared norm with our students, is really, really, really critical. We also can engage in morning meetings so that we can really know our students as whole people, right? So know their names, know their stories, know their learning styles, and how they approach the day can be really important. And finally, engaging in authentic gratitude practices is a really great evidence-based strategy to build those connection points. So I do want to highlight one of the links on this page. Throughout this chapter, you will see several links that say see more. You can see it highlighted in yellow over there. Each one of these links takes you to a section of an assessment that we at Healthier Generation co-built with Kaiser Permanente called the RISE Index. This is a no-cost assessment that gauges how well schools and districts are doing on addressing key levers and best practices in the area of social-emotional health. So this is the cover of the RISE Index School Edition. We also have an edition for districts as well. And this is a tool where not only you can assess what you want to do, but you can set and plan goals and really use that for action planning and to gauge resources. What you'll see here is an example from our school systems section, which asks exactly what we've been talking about today, right? So how well and how often do you engage your students in relationship building opportunities?
Great. Thank you, Elizabeth, for highlighting the RISE Index and other resources that our audience can check out. So many schools are aware of the importance of trauma-informed training. What are some best practices that schools can consider?
Yeah, so for me, when I think of trauma-informed training and schools, one of the biggest missteps that schools make in their trauma-informed journey is to engage in trauma-informed training, which is really great, and become sort of trauma-aware, but then that's where they stop. So trauma-informed training is a critical first step, right? We want folks to have a foundational knowledge and a common language with which they're working from. But becoming a trauma-informed school is a transformative process. It starts with training, so becoming aware, and then you start to embed the principles and practices into your system. And that's patchy and awkward, right? So that sort of feeling of just uncomfortableness is part of the process. That's what we call trauma responsive. And because we know repetition builds fluency, eventually the more that we do that, right, as we infuse things into our system, trauma-informed practices become how we do business as a school. So that's the transformation. So to apply the trauma-informed training, one of the recommendations that I always like to make is to take a look at one or two key policies through the trauma-informed lens. A good place to start in general, but particularly for this time, are discipline and attendance. Now is a really good time to look and revise those policies, since reopening is going to require us to look at things like PPE enforcement, right? Whether or not kids are, masked if they're supposed to be, or staying distance apart. And what do we do when students are in violation of that? And also flexible attendance as we think about balancing in-person, hybrid, and virtual learning experiences. So you want your leadership team to stay really focused and practice on applying that lens in a small way first. And once you get comfortable, you start to expand to the other policies. So that's the policy side of things. On the practice side, the fundamental first strategy of trauma-informed care is shifting our mindset as educators. When we see behavior in our classroom that is not in keeping with our expectations, rather than assuming the behavior is willful or intentional, we want to train our brains to, by default, ask the question, hey, what's getting in the way of this student learning? That's it. That's the strategy. Doing this, right, asking what's getting in the way, puts us in a state of problem solving, reduces our own defensiveness, keeps us regulated, and paves the way for useful intervention. So I want to take a second here and highlight a great no-cost resource. The Wisconsin Department of Public Instruction, where I used to work, has over 25 modules to support schools in becoming a trauma-sensitive school. They're all free, available at no cost to any school that wants to use them. What I like about these modules is that they're set within the context of a multi-tiered system support. So whether you're thinking about universal practices or more targeted intervention supports through a trauma-informed lens, it's all there for you. And it's more more than just training, right? The knowledge is there. And then also, in addition to that, there are some supplemental readings that you can do to deepen your knowledge. And every module has an implementation tool. So I can take the concept that's in the module and directly apply it to my school community so that I can actually work on that transformative process that we talked about earlier.
Well, thank you, Elizabeth. Sounds like the tools will be very applicable to all schools and will kind of meet them where they are in the implementation phase.
Exactly.
Great. Well, we know that COVID-19 will continue to have an impact on our mental health. What are some ways that schools can support students and staff that are adapting to the next normal?
Yeah, so that's it, Flora. You just did it, right? Doing exactly what you just did. We want to acknowledge the problem and ask the question, how can I help? This is hard. Everything that's happening right now is really difficult, and it's hard differently for everybody. So we want to talk with our students, and we want to talk with each other about how it's going and have them co-construct what they need, right? So we want to do things with people, not to people. So we're going to support students in getting those needs met through classroom practices like morning meetings, like I talked about earlier, a mental health referral process that is transparent and easy for people to understand and navigate, and strong community connections for meals and transportations and other types of needs that our students might need. And we also want to support students through fostering these regular connections with each other. A strong and well-communicated health benefit or EAP and demonstrating deep gratitude for the work that our staff is doing is also critically important for addressing this.
Great, thank you, Elizabeth. Now, how can building social emotional skills support the mental health of students and school staff, and what are some strategies to help schools get started?
Yeah, so I'm going to sound a little bit like a broken record, like you heard this before, but the research tells us that students with positive social emotional skills tend to have greater academic success and greater success after graduation. So I always like to root us back to this idea that learning is emotional. And if we're in the business of learning as schools, then we need to really focus on the emotional aspects and the emotional growth of our students as well as our staff. So we know like things like a nuanced feelings vocabulary and high self-awareness and self-management of individual feelings is a protective factor against anxiety and depression and a whole host of other mental health concerns. So social emotional health is good all around, both on the mental health side as well as on the academic side. Now, the approach for teaching the skills are actually two-pronged. The first is explicit instruction for students. There are a lot of great tools and resources out for that. Castle, for example, which is linked in this playbook, has recently put out a really, really good deep dive on how to do this work. And it can be as simple as doing an emotional check-in in your morning meeting or talking about task persistence before you start a hard math lesson, or it can be a total curriculum lift. So that's the first prong. The second prong is really around regularly modeling and reinforcing these skills across all school environments. So not just during your time of teaching, but literally at every moment, you as an adult want to be able to model the skills yourselves and then reinforce it when you see your students doing them as well. So this means that us as adults, we need to tap into some vulnerability too. We know that kids do what kids see. So if we model it, they will do it. It's really important to apply the trauma-informed principles here, particularly equity and cultural humility. We wanted to develop our social emotional skills that are in line with the values and culture of our students, which may be different from our own.
Great, thank you, Elizabeth. And throughout the pandemic, it's become clear that schools are truly the bedrock of support for students and educators. What role can schools play for individuals in need of additional mental health intervention or support?
Yeah, I mean, you're absolutely right, Flora. Schools since the dawn of school time probably have been the epicenter and the hub for supports for students. And mental health intervention is no exception to that. Schools have always been in the business of providing social, emotional, behavioral interventions and supports for students. One of the best parts about our public education system is that we have a whole host of specialized instructional support personnel who can collaborate on a whole child approach to mental and behavioral health. The growing edge here is around efficiency and effectiveness, a strong referral pathway that indicates a process for identifying students, available interventions, exit and entrance criteria, so we know how kids get in, but also how they're being successful, and how we're scaffolding those supports off are incredibly important. A strong link to community providers, and also a lot of family engagement. These are all critical to ensuring that students are getting what they need, and the adults in the school environment are clear on what to expect, right? So you want both of those things, students getting their needs met and adults exactly knowing what the process is. So it's nice and transparent and clear. It's critical that staff co-construct these interventions with the students they're serving and collaborate with any external providers to ensure continuity of services, so that if kids are moving in and out of different types of systems, the burden of switching is not on them, but really on the adults to align their languages and align their practices.
Great. And I know, Elizabeth, you've highlighted a lot of great strategies and resources and tips for implementing these strategies. But as we wrap, do you have any final thoughts to share?
Yeah, I suppose like a message, if I could say, for the folks watching, if that's all right with you, Flora.
Yeah.
All right. So it's that, research tells us the brain is wired to make meaning and to find certainty. And the more uncertain the circumstance, the more dysregulated we feel, which causes our thinking to narrow, and we become more rigid as we try to search for these perfect solutions. And so that, to me, is exactly where we're finding us now. But I want to emphasize to the folks watching this is that the vibrancy and well-being of our school doesn't generate from perfect plans executed perfectly. It really comes from this collaborative sense of community and the knowledge that we're all in it together. And that's our strength, right? The strength of the public school system is around the collaboration and all the various people and students and families that really pitch in order to make it a vibrant space to live. So my final request is that we're kind to each other, right? And that we're kind to ourselves. And remember that we're all doing really great work and the best we can given the circumstances that we're in.
Well, thank you, Elizabeth, for that message and for joining us today and really highlighting that the strength of the school community is the school community itself, and that we all have a role to play in making this experience work for all of us. And for everyone watching, we encourage you to download the complete playbook, which includes resources on mental health and well-being, some that Elizabeth highlighted during this conversation, plus many more, as well as resources on the COVID-19 prevention chapter, social drivers of health, physical activity and physical education, and staff and teacher well-being. You'll also find a printable checklist for each chapter that covers all 5 plays, as you see on the screen. And so again, we just encourage you to visit the Thriving Schools website, download the playbook, plus many other resources that will be instrumental for your planning for the upcoming school year. Thank you for joining us, and take care.